Hamilton.
All right, we will get started. This is Town Council Meeting 1-26. It's Tuesday, January 6th, 2026 at 6:07 p.m. We're in Town Council Chambers, 30 Main Street, Freeport, Maine. Our first order of business is to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will move on to roll call. Councillor Pillsbury.
Present.
Councillor Lawrence.
Here.
Councillor Brown.
Here.
Councillor Smith.
Present.
Councillor Pilch. Here. Councillor Benoit is here. Councillor Sparta is excused for a professional conference this evening.
Just a reminder that we need to.
We'll roll call. Yeah, so we'll be roll calling our votes tonight. So our next order of business is to waive the reading and accept as printed the December 16th, 2025 meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
Councillor Lawrence.
I'm just keeping you on your toes.
All right, we'll do our roll call vote. Councillor Pillsbury.
Aye.
Councillor Lawrence.
Yes.
Councillor Brown.
Yes.
Councillor Smith.
Aye.
Councillor Pilch. Yes. Councillor Benoit votes yes. Moving on to our announcements, I have a few. 2025 dog licenses expired on December 31st. A $25 late fee will be assessed starting February 1st. You may renew your dog licenses online at maine.gov or in the clerk's office. Freeport Community Library will be hosting a tiny art show in February, exhibiting tiny works of art created by members of our community. All ages are welcome to participate and submit a piece of art no larger than 3 by 3. The library will be giving away 3 by 3 inch canvases and easels starting January 14th and will continue while supplies last. To be included in the art show, art must be returned to the library by closing time on February 6th. An artist reception will be held on February 10th from 3 to 6. This show is co-sponsored by Freeport Community Library and Freeport Middle School, but is open to all ages. That sounds delightful. Any other announcements? All right, we will move on to our information exchange. This is the time for councilors to share any information from committee or board meetings or any constituent conversations or any other information they'd like to share. Councilor Brown.
It's midwinter, and I want to remind business owners, building owners throughout town that it's your responsibility to keep your sidewalks cleared and safe for your customers. A few weeks ago, I experienced some confusion with just in my discussions with some of the business owners who didn't seem to understand that it is their responsibility, and actually witnessed someone fall. So it's called the Sidewalk Maintenance Ordinance, and I'd be happy to talk to anyone about it. So something to pay attention to. Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else from councilors?
I've got something.
Councilor Pilch.
First of all, apologies for forcing you guys to do roll call votes all evening. I figured that's the better option than bringing my flu germs to you. And making you sick.
Appreciated. Thank you.
We have 3 housing projects underway downtown, which is very exciting. They're underway in various different stages of permitting. 2 on Depot Street. I think one's 45 units, the other's maybe 51 units. And then one being proposed for Elm Street for 12 units. And I bring it up because one, to celebrate that we finally achieved some momentum here, but also that I've had some constituents reach out with concerns. So the short story is that I'm hosting just an informal gathering on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock at the Grange to talk about housing in Freeport in general. So it's not an official meeting, voting on anything, nothing relating to permitting, just a discussion. place where people can ask questions about, hey, what's going on? We can talk about the process a little bit. How do things get permitted? If I do have concerns, when's the right time for me to raise them? Things like that. So I'm not expecting a huge turnout. I'm not expecting anything. There's no great grand presentations, but it is just an informal chat over coffee if you want to bring coffee. 10 a.m. Saturday at the Grange, open to anybody who wants to talk about housing in Freeport.
That's great, thank you. And that's a good segue also into, this is in the manager's report, but just a reminder that we have a workshop, more like an information session, scheduled for next week, January 14th, from 6 to 7. This will be about the Village Corridor Initiative. Stantec will be there, which is the engineering consulting firm that we're using. I think the overall sort of idea is just to give an update on where we are in the process, pretty high level. And also, it's not confirmed yet, but I just asked counselors to hold February 3rd from 5 to 6 before our regular council meeting for a workshop on the VCI with Complete Streets. Another thing as well, we are wrapping up Sophie's evaluation. I have a couple folks I'm still waiting for evaluations from. We'll have our executive session next meeting to go over those results. Anything else from folks? All right, so with that, I'll move it over to the committee section of our information exchange. So we have our Freeport representative for the Greater Portland Metro here, Bill Rickson, for his regular update on what's going on with the Metro, the breeze.
Yeah, I'm Bill Rickson, and I'm the representative for the town with GP Metro, the Regional Transit Authority. And last time I was here, I think probably was back in October, and in November there was a $4 million grant from Federal Transit Authority to GP Metro, and which they're going to be using to purchase 6 new buses, 3 for the normal fleet replacement, and 3 additional buses for to expand service in South Portland and in Scarborough. The GP Metro is going into Scarborough in greater coverage, so those 3 buses can be used there. Now, you can get to Scarborough now on a bus that goes to down to Saco, Biddeford area, but it just runs through Scarborough, and this service is going to be far more inclusive to other sections of Scarborough. Also, I think last time I was here, it was somebody had asked about the micro-transit project that has been going on for the past, more than the past year in Falmouth with GP Metro. And that service is within the eastern half of Falmouth. There's a transit zone, and within that zone, which I think to the west it probably goes out as far as where the town hall and the schools are in Falmouth, and to the east all the way to the Foreside. And anywhere in that district, you can access this service through the website or through a phone number. There are a number of ways you can get in touch with it. And you can have this small van come and pick you up anywhere in that section of Falmouth and take you anywhere else in Falmouth, or to one of the bus stops for the number 7 bus. So you can then, anyway, you can get from your house to the bus that take you into Portland if you'd like to do that. So that pilot project is still underway, and hopefully with additional funding, that can be added to other towns. So eventually that might happen in Freeport, but not in the immediate future, but that's a possibility. So that would be kind of nice. You could be anywhere in the town of Freeport, and you could call the service up and get transportation in town to pick up the breeze, to go up to Brunswick or down to Portland. The other thing I wanted to mention is people in Yarmouth, the GP Metro rep in Yarmouth is Julie Dabrowski, and I think she might be in the planning department there, or I'm not positive. But anyway, she's got in touch with me and was asking about how we might encourage more people to take the breeze and get people out of cars and into public transportation. And she asked me to ask you if there's any of you or anybody you know in the town government here who might have ideas or might like to work with her and other people in Yarmouth about trying to get people onto public transportation and out of their cars. So I offer that to you as a possibility. Myself, I've mentioned this before, I'm always surprised when I talk about the breeze in public transportation, and people in town have no idea that public transportation exists and that possibility is there. So anyway, that's my report. If anybody has any questions, try to field them.
Thanks, Bill. One question, just you mentioned the expanded service that a Metro is planning in Scarborough, and I'm assuming that will include many of the areas where they now have high-density housing.
Exactly.
And I think it'll be very interesting to see what that ridership is like, because I think, as we continue to talk about what transit-oriented development looks like here in Freeport, I think there is a lot of curiosity and speculation about just how many people will be in those new, what we hope will be new housing areas that will be making use of transit. And I think Scarborough might be a very interesting indication with that new service. So I hope you'll keep us posted on that.
I will. Yeah, that service is scheduled to start this coming summer. But yeah, I think GP Metro at large the people on the executive board are very curious to answer those same questions about how that's going to work. But I know I've followed a little bit of the planning behind it, and they've done community outreach where they have meetings, several meetings in the town of Scarborough, and looking for, where ideas about how that transit should be laid out, and the different housing developments that you're talking about. That all has been considered. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Good.
Any other questions for Bill? Great. Thanks,
Thank
Bill.
you.
Okay, we'll move on to the manager's report. A reminder that we've moved to a new system where Sophie links her report for us to review before the meeting. So are there any questions on the report that Sophie sent? And then also, Sophie, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I updated the report this morning, just to include the fact that the town clerk's office is operating at half staff for, as of yesterday, and for up to 12 weeks. Chris has been working with finance to try to share work the best she can. But given the fact that we are open more hours than we expect people to work, her office is going to be open from 7:30 to 5, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and 7:30 to 6 on Tuesday, which gives 40 hours for the public.
And how are we sharing that information with the public?
So Chris is working with Pete Yazakevich, and we are expecting that to really start flooding in the next week. We also have some signage here, so if people are experiencing a line, they can look and see if their needs are things that finance folks can help them with. Chris is also going to work with finance folks on the computer terminal that we have, because there are some things that you need a clerk to do, but the state can do it through their website. So finance folks will be able to help people walk through that if they can't wait.
Yep, great. I also just want to call out your acknowledgement of the Public Works crew for the sneaky storm from the 23rd to the 24th. That dropped so much snow. So thank you for Earl and your team for taking care of that and doing an excellent job. I noticed for sure. That was I don't think we were expecting that much snow. That was a surprise.
We were expecting 7, we got 17.
Yeah, that was wild. So thank you. All right, anything else?
I was just going to comment and second Sophie's observation about the programming at the library. And I was able to go to that library program in December. And not surprisingly, for the very civically engaged community that we have in Freeport, that in the midst of what is generally a lot of holiday programming in December, people showed up for a book talk about American nations. So it's really great that they were able to have a local author end his sort of national book tour here at the library. And great to see so many people using that building, especially in these cold winter months.
That's great. All right, so we'll move on to our first public comment period. This is for folks who are in person. It's limited to comments that are not on the agenda. We just ask that you introduce yourself and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. No, don't worry. I hear Tom. There we go.
There, all right. Hi, my name is Chalmers Hardenberg. I live at 11 Somerset in the condominiums down here, and I'm representing the 50, 60 people who live there in an effort to address the bridge question. I'm looking to you for a resolution to support keeping the bridge at its existing 19 feet 6 inches. Now, we all know the bridge is going to be a disaster, so I'm not going to talk about that. I want to talk about 3 other reasons we shouldn't do it. The first is that there is no need for the 22 or 23 feet that DOT and CSX are looking for. That will help if you have an auto rack or if you have a double stack car.
Thank you.
Now, no one is going to start a container port in Damariscotta or an auto terminal in Woolwich. That's just not going to happen. So there's no need for this. But second reason, suppose somebody does say, well, I am going to do an auto terminal in Damariscotta. The problem with that is that there's not just our bridge. There are 12 other bridges, as you can see here, between Portland at the bottom and the Carlton Bridge between Bath and Woolwich. So you can't just raise our bridge and then have auto racks or double stack run as far as the Carlton Bridge. You're going to have to raise 13 other bridges. Now, this is my rough determination. I'm not sure this is completely accurate, but this is my sense. So let's say each bridge costs $3 million to raise. We have 13 of them, that's $39 million. The Carlton Bridge, as you can see here, is going to be a bear to increase its clearance. So I'm saying $11 million, $50 million to get the cars to Damariscotta. How long is this going to take? Well, I'm not blaming DOT, but they're not going to be able to do this all at once. So I'm saying, let's say each bridge takes 4 years, 52 years. Carlton Bridge takes 8 years. Now we're looking at 60 years out before any traffic is going to be able to run to this auto terminal in Damariscotta. So I don't think we should be doing it. So if, however, it is done, the third reason is it's going to be a complete waste of money. It's going to be a bridge to nowhere. We will have spent, the state will have spent, feds will have spent $5 or $6 million and we get nothing out of it. So I'm begging you to pass this resolution and which will support my effort and other people's effort at the legislature. We have Art Bell, we have Melanie Sachs, and we have Dan Ankelis all agreeing that something should go forward at the legislature. And a resolution from you folks would really help. Thank you.
Thank you, Chalmers. Just so I talked to Chalmers about this before the meeting and just for council and for the public. So this is part of the VCI too. This bridge is part of the Village Corridor Initiative. So Sophie will be touching base with Maine DOT to kind of figure out their timeline for the design and then where there can be room for public input as well. So we'll keep folks updated. Any other comments? Okay. Moving on to our voting portion of the agenda. So we'll move on to item 1-26. This is to adopt our consent agenda. Councillor Pillsbury, could you please read the be it ordered?
Sure. Be it ordered that the January 6, 2026 consent agenda be adopted.
Second.
Any discussion? All right. Councillor Pillsbury.
Aye.
Councillor Lawrence.
Aye.
Councillor Brown.
Yes.
Councillor Smith.
Aye.
Councillor Pilch.
Aye.
Councillor Benoit, yes. Okay, moving on to item 2-26. This is to discuss an appointment of an alternate delegate for GP COG. So typically this has been Jessica Malloy, and she's done a great job because we haven't needed an alternate. I did just want to take it off. It was on our consent agenda, but we took it off just to see if there was a counselor who would like to be the alternate instead. Essentially, it is just that typically the chair is the delegate for GP COG, so it would be if I wasn't able to attend occasional midday meetings. I find them very fascinating. You kind of connect with regional elected officials on topics that are affecting everybody. Like I said, Jessica has done a great job because we haven't had to utilize her, but I did want to see if there was a counselor who would be interested in the spot.
I would be interested, namely because you so rarely need an alternate
Yes.
for anything. And I know what that's like. So I would be willing to do that unless there was another counselor.
Great. Does anybody have any, did we feel like Eric would be a good delegate for this position?
I think it'd be great, and I'd be willing to be a backup. Of a backup.
Wow, this is, all right, down the line.
Having gone to a GP COG meeting earlier in the year.
Yeah, they're quite fascinating
Bless.
and informative. I'm happy to put Eric's name in the motion. Councillor Lawrence, could you read the be it ordered?
Be it ordered that Eric Smith be appointed as the alternate delegate to the Greater Portland Council of Government, GP COG, for a one-year term.
Second.
Great. Councillor Pillsbury.
Aye.
Councillor Lawrence.
Yes.
Councillor Brown.
Yes.
Councillor Smith.
Aye.
Councillor Pilch.
Aye.
And Councillor Benoit votes yes. All right, moving on to item 3-26. So this is in reference to the Flying Point Road reconstruction and drainage project. We have Public Works Director Earl Gibson here to introduce the item.
Well, I'm going to cheat a little bit tonight. Do you have any questions? This is a project that was approved back in 2023. For various reasons, it got pushed back a little bit, so we ended up getting a set of plans and having an idea exactly what we want to do, which is basically going to rebuild everything in that stretch. It's also going to replace the cross pipes underneath it, but more importantly, we're going to get the ditches down to 3 foot so that the water can get away from the roadway. That's one of the biggest issues there. So we went out to bid. My town manager asked me why the numbers were so different. You'll notice that one of them is quite a bit different than the other one. It's all in material. One bidder owns their own plant. One bidder has to buy the material. That's where the difference is.
Great.
I reviewed the document that discussed this, and I wasn't absolutely clear of where it is.
Lower Mass Landing,
Right.
just a little bit past there, to the Y at Flying Point and Pleasant Hill.
Okay.
So that section in between, the rough section, as we used to call it.
I think it said Upper Mass Landing, and that's what confused
Yeah,
me.
you could actually use either one. Upper Mass is probably the better one because it's a little bit closer.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Earl?
I just want to acknowledge that it has been a little while because this did get pushed back, but Earl had a really fantastic public engagement meeting with a lot of the residents that are right along that strip. And I think those comments and feedback were taken into some updates in this plan, which I think is really great that, first of all, the residents turned out and Earl was really open to hearing what that is because it is a really significant piece of infrastructure, not just for the residents that live there, but for everybody on the northeast side of town that's coming down Pleasant Hill or Flying Point or Wolf's Neck. That's where they get into downtown, and it also is an area of concern because you do have so many residential streets that are feeding into right where that hill is. So it's a tricky area, and I really appreciate the time and concern that you've taken, Earl, to try to get this right.
And also, I just want to recognize that it makes sense that, it's not FY23 anymore. Inflation is very real. So, of course, we don't like seeing the cost increase, but it makes sense in this case for sure.
In that short period of time, and it scares me, I don't want to waste the council's time, but it scares me a little bit to give you numbers because it changes so fast.
Yeah.
But in that short period of time, we dropped $12 a ton on asphalt. And that's pretty much unheard of. We're over $120 a ton on asphalt now. So that's a little bit scary.
All right. Any other questions? You what? Oh. All right. Councillor Brown, could you read the be it ordered?
Sure. Be it ordered that Crooker Construction be awarded the bid for the Flying Point Road reconstruction and drainage project in the amount of $599,875.
Second.
All right. Councillor Pillsbury.
Aye.
Councillor Lawrence.
Yes.
Councillor Brown.
Yes.
Councillor Smith.
Aye.
Councillor Pilch. Oh, Councillor Pilch, we didn't quite hear you. Oh,
Still no.
uh-oh.
He says thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Okay. Well, we'll get Tom to fix that, but we'll accept that thumbs up for now. And Councillor Benoit votes yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Earl. This is where we get chatty. All right, moving on to public comment period, part 2. So this is limited to folks who are not in the room, who are virtual, and for items not on the agenda. Not on the agenda. Oh. Not on the agenda. Loved that.
The remix.
I don't see anybody, so we'll go ahead. We'll move on to other business. Our first order of other business is the discussion of the short-term rental registration ordinance. This has kind of been coming up a little bit throughout the last couple of months. Just taking time to revisit our goal for the ordinance and to make sure that the ordinance actually, the language reflects that. When we discussed it during other business a couple months ago, we didn't quite get there. So Sophie has prepared a memo, which I think is concise and gives some good options. I do just want to open up the conversation to start for folks' input on the ordinance and the goal, the reason we have it. I will say that I think, there's been a couple times recently in the last couple months we've said, I wish we had this data, and I think that could very much happen with short-term rentals, and so having an ordinance or a way to collect that data feels very valuable, but making sure it feels enforceable and fair, I think is crucial. Any thoughts? There's also the possibility that, we say, yes, it still works. I think that still begs the question of enforcement. We say if we're going to have a request for registration, there needs to be, enforcement of that, I believe. So, Councilor
Yeah.
Lawrence.
I was against this from the beginning. I still am, except for having people register if it's, I thought it was great in this memo, if it's a corporation, so we can get a hold of somebody. I think that was the problem in the past. It says here they had 60 violations in the beginning. I don't think they were with the ordinance. I think they were code violations or something like that. But since then, we've had 0 violations, which tells me we put something in place that we didn't really need, because usually if you put something in place, you're going to get violations. So I'm in favor of reducing a lot of what's in the ordinance to something that says if you're a corporation, you need to register with the town, and we need to have somebody that we can call if there's a problem, a person on the ground.
Sophie, could you clarify, so it does say the annual licensing fee, GPCOG's recent report estimated about 175 short-term rentals and identified 60 violations during initial review. Was that recent?
That was a report that Caroline sent me earlier this month. It had been done in 2024. I'm not sure if it was, I don't believe it was updated at this point.
2024.
Correct.
Councilor Brown?
And,
Oh.
whoops, just for clarification, Chris, how many STRs do we have?
86.
86 that are registered right now.
So we went from 175 to 86?
So we have ones that have registered
Yeah.
voluntarily with that number about 86. When they use their software to scrape what we have, they came at 175. And then the other third party that called after the last conversation came up with a number in that neighborhood of 175.
So there's, with that, we can deduce that there's a good chunk that are not registered.
At least probably double.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So our violations, that could mean anything. It might mean non-registration, in other words, not following the ordinance.
So I'm not sure they would have the data of who was registered. My hunch is that the violations might be more violations of our ordinance.
So I went back to Paul and asked about the fee for some clarification. And he said the fee for the town would only be on the actual license issued. Again, they ran the numbers in 2024, but he said looking at what we have of the 85 currently registered, their experience, they've been doing this for other towns. He would guess that our number would be about 120 STRs after we start enforcement. So that's their assumption, $2,400 a year, and again, they would assume we have 120, so
Yeah.
40-ish.
Yep.
So what are the actual violations they have here? Because every year we get an
These-
account for violations from,
These would be people that are not registered.
so
that
it's
are
just
listing, not
registration
registered.
violations?
Yeah.
Not,
And I think that's really important to call out, that we haven't really had issues with short-term rentals, so we don't need to be like punitive for any reason, but it is good data to have. So how do we balance sort of encouraging registration, but also not being punitive when we don't need to be?
I would say the issues we've had really come up when they register for the first time, because back in the day, we didn't allow apartments, so a lot of them just magically appeared, and they didn't always update their septic and do other things. So we have had to weed through, or Chris and codes have had to weed through some of those issues. Not everyone can come into compliance from the get-go, but a lot of people can.
Yeah.
but again, that's not a short-term rental violation, that's a code violation.
But one of the more prevalent code violations that I have seen, especially on the waterfront, are folks who have septic systems that were approved for seasonal use of X number of bedrooms, and plumbing code has changed. So if you're continuing to use it on a non-rental basis, you're perfectly fine with your septic and you're not in violation. But as soon as you change the use to a short-term rental, the calculation for how much capacity you need is significantly increased, which is one of the things that people have really been running into and has created, I think, a hardship in terms of not being able to do what people want to be able to do.
Is there a sense of how much staff time is being involved? Is there a sense of complaints from whom? From neighbors, from?
So I wasn't here in 2021 when this was being discussed. In the 2 years I've been here, we've had, I think, people have referenced concerns in neighborhoods, but they've been historical, not necessarily happening. The biggest complaints that have used a ton of staff time are people who have very large houses that want to be able to rent to more people than the ordinance allows. Codes has spent a lot of time with those folks, has spent a lot of time with folks whose subsurface or septic systems are not meeting code. Anytime you start making significant changes to waterfront property, most of those, not most, many are legally non-conforming lots. And so when you add this wrinkle, people really think they should be able to do things that the ordinance or state law just does not allow. So honestly, that's where much of our staff time, it's on the landowner side as opposed to concerns. I have not had anything trip into my office as a problem with this, in terms of noise or parking. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but the times that I've had people talk about that, it's been pretty historic, like before I arrived here.
Having been here from the beginning of this, every year we get a report about how many violations. And over the last 5 years,
Yeah.
it's been this many.
And I think the code side, that is a piece that I think lends value to the registration process. Because if you don't know, they have a Airbnb or a short-term rental, you don't know if they're complying with codes.
I think one of the complaints that I have heard is not just with short-term rental, but other things that we ask people to license for on a voluntary basis, is when you put that into ordinance, you have a segment of the population that is going to voluntarily comply and come in and want to do everything the right way. And then you're going to have another segment that just doesn't know, and then another segment who just isn't going to comply. So I think one of the issues that comes up is if we have a requirement and we are not enforcing that requirement, in essence, some people are paying and doing the right thing, and a whole other group of people aren't. And so it's not really uniform.
Councilor Smith?
I
See, Dan wants to talk.
just want to share that as somebody who has a short-term rental and has been through the registration process, both in the initial process and then in renewals, I find the requirement not at all burdensome. I think it's a really simple process. It's a little more involved the first time because you have to have the codes really look through and make sure that you're in compliance. And then if you have not changed anything, it's a pretty simple process. And the fee, I think, is nominal. I will say that I think the most punitive part of it is the late fee. So if you, aren't planning to have your short-term rental operating and then halfway through the year you decide you are, but you've missed that renewal period, that's where it's, it's a significantly higher fee, as are a lot of things, which, that's the one thing that I would say that if we're looking for any barriers to why people might not register, that might be something we would look at. But I think that if it's working well, which it seems to be, I don't think that is a signal that we should just not do it anymore, or that it's not needed. I think that we took an issue. There was some effort that was required to get everybody in line, and now you have, as Sophie said, the segment of the population that is eager to complying. And the question is how many folks are outside of that. And if those folks are operating short-term rentals and they have never been through the process, then we don't know what those code violations might be. And I think there are neighborhood concerns, particularly along waterfront, narrow residential roads where they want to make sure that there's enough off-street parking. But I would also say that if we are in this sweet spot right now where everything is working very well, and we are working to introduce all of this high-density housing right downtown, I can't imagine that we will not be looking at more pressure on potential short-term rentals in many of those buildings. And I would hate to pull this only to have to redo it in 3 or 4 years if we've got a good cadence on it now.
And I see Councilor Pilch is off mute. Oh, we can't hear you. Do we know where Tom is?
Caroline?
Yeah, I had messaged him about
Dan, we're going to try and get you back.
While we're waiting on Dan, I think the other piece of the ordinance provides, one, it gives us an upper limit cap protection, but it also gives us data on how housing is being utilized within our town, and that's been a primary focus of a lot of our planning initiatives around getting a sense of our current housing stock, how it's being used, and what we need to do to support and promote different types of housing within our town. And without knowing what segment of our housing stock is being diverted to short-term rentals, that leaves us flying a little blind. So we're lucky that, things are going smoothly, but I think this is a great data collection ordinance at the bare minimum.
And so one thing I'm curious about with the this process of sort of scraping the internet and finding out how many short-term rentals are in Freeport, is it something that because as time goes on, people are offering more short-term rentals, they might not know you have to register, as we've discussed. So if we can scrape that data and then let them know, if you don't know, you don't know. So I'm curious if that software is, do we have to pay for it to be using it all the time? Can it be like a one-time every couple of years we scrape and send a reminder? Yeah.
And in that case, I would say that this isn't working well for data collection because we have half,
Well, I think
three-quarters,
that's
so
an
it's-
enforcement issue, not an ordinance issue.
well, no, you just said that it collects a lot of data, and we don't have the data. We scraped the website and said, oh, look, looks like you have half missing. So, to me, that says it's not working, and if we can get it through, and I don't have a problem with people registering. I think that's fine, because then we know we can get a hold of somebody if there's a problem. It's the rest of it, the parking problem. We have parking ordinances. Noise, we have noise ordinances. There's all those other things we already have ordinances for that are put into this document that now, one, takes a lot of time, because if we update our parking, now we got to update this one. So I have a hard time with it, because we have had, with the actual ordinance itself, we've had zero issues with the reasons it was put into place, which was for parking and noise and those kind of things. So as far as registering, fine. I think we can have people register. But the rest of it, we have a requirement in there for $1 million in insurance if you're going to arrest it. Why is that in there? I know the town, to protect the town, requires tenants to have $1 million worth of insurance. But why are we asking people to protect themselves? I don't get that. That's not a government thing. We're forcing them to do that. So I don't, and if we want to make them register the first time and have them go through and look at all, okay, yep, you can do this, and then just register every year and make it a very small registration fee, because that doesn't, the first time it's going to cost you $100. Every other time after that, you register, it's 25. And then keep an eye on those so that if they change something, because they have to come through the codes, we can make it, make sure it's up to, you're still using this as a Airbnb, you need to have these things. Because what's going to happen is it's going to creep into something else, and that's what always happens with these things. And it creates more problems, like, we got half the town that's following this, and the other half doesn't. Now we have to enforce it, which creates more time that we don't have to do, so, or we don't have. So I'm for making this a very small ordinance that, fine, we can have them register and make sure everything's checked, and then every year after that, a small fee to register, just to say we've got this.
Before you speak, Councilor Brown, I'm going to see if we can get Dan. No. We're going to get there, Dan.
Joanna, can I add something for you while we're waiting for Dan? So just want to clarify, we're not just paying GP cog to scrape the data on the web. It's actually a registration platform. So people can register on this. There's an online facing form. Chris has made one already, but it will feed data into it. So it is a database, it's a tracking program, and part of GP cog will cater this to fit the needs of the municipality. So one of the things they're doing for some towns is when they find the initial violations or the violation every year, they're sending the friendly letter on behalf of the town to say, hey, we noticed you have an STR and it's not registered. If you're using it, come into compliance. So just to clarify, that $20 per registered unit is more than just tracking it. Again, I think we can find out if we could use it one time. We would really want to evaluate internally with our staff if we already have a system in place that's serving the needs. We don't necessarily want to pay for something we don't feel like we need, but I did just want to clarify that. I think if you go back to the memo we sent you for the last meeting, I believe South Portland, Old Orchard, and maybe Cape Elizabeth and Falmouth might be using the software. So if you go to their websites, you can kind of poke around and see the other side of it, or GP cog would always come if you want more.
Councilor Brown, did you have something you wanted to add?
One of the questions seems to be the software. And so my question is, what effect will that, so we say there are no complaints, but in a sense, if we're using an inordinate amount of staff time to address relatively few users, that's a kind of complaint, and it's a cost to the town. So my question is the software going to make us more efficient? Will it actually give us data that will be useful? Will it cause us to actually go deeper in a way that we really don't want to? I mean, if it's working pretty well, how deeply do we want to go into this process of managing this whole area?
So ultimately, that's council's, that's why you guys get paid the big bucks. What I will say is during our conversation, as you're aware, department heads like to listen from afar and weigh in. And our assessor has weighed in to just let me know that for a couple of years, he was assessing short-term rentals on a different basis because it's income-producing property, but that last year he had to stop because he became aware of the number of rentals that were not registered. So then there's an inequity. So by scraping it and giving us the data, we would have that. That said, you can choose not to assess. I mean, I wouldn't want that to become the rationale for your decision, but I would want you to have that data point.
What's the difference?
Well, if you just keep, you wait just a minute, I'm sure.
She has to chat with Min.
I'm sure he'll pop it up here pretty soon.
So it sounds like, I mean, I'm hearing sort of like a couple of goals or consensus items of people are interested on, or we're interested on having like the data of how many short-term rentals are in Freeport. The code compliance is a big part of it, making sure they are up to code when they initially register and ongoing. And Councilor Pillsbury, your point of, allows us to have a cap, to have sort of a bit of a oversight on how much of the housing stock we would comfortably allow for short-term rentals. I mean, if we start with like what we're looking for, then we can think about how to get there, whether it's the ordinance or the software. Are we gonna try Dan again? No. Counselor.
I just wanted to say, I'm really considering Councilor Lawrence's points about how much is in the ordinance and how much of that is actually needed. And I do think it's interesting because I think what we're trying to do is find this middle ground where the whole point for a lot of people of short-term rentals is they're not really in business. Right. Some of them are in fact businesses and corporations, as you note, and some of them are just people who have this as a small opportunity for additional income. And so, but because for visitors coming to town who are renting these short-term rentals, they are essentially entering in to a sort of middle ground hospitality industry, making sure that we have some basic requirements for what their experience is. And I think, thinking about the insurance piece, I think that's, again, sort of a compliance issue around, in some cases, individual folks have homeowners insurance that may not cover them if they have not disclosed that they are using it as a short-term rental. But if you are listing your short-term rental on many of the public platforms, that platform actually issues you that insurance, and we do accept that as proof of insurance. But I'm also thinking about your point about parking, for example, and I think where originally that concern was related to smaller neighborhoods and concern about off-street parking, I'm thinking now, again, in terms of high-density housing, where we've reduced the parking requirement on a residential basis to 3/4 of a space per unit. But in many cases, that would not be compliant enough to take, if in fact you don't have enough off-street parking in your high-density housing unit, you may not be able to comply with this, and maybe that's a good thing, but I think maybe it's worth looking at.
But that's a whole different program. I mean, that's a high-density housing. This is someone that has a house, wants to rent it out. And one of the issues with the parking was it was a private, the reason this was done, it was a private street. We can't do anything about that anyway, unless they have to call a tow truck to have them towed. So it's,
But I guess where I'm saying it is an issue with the high-density housing is that if somebody owns a condo, that's built down and that has one parking space assigned to it,
Yeah.
that may not be in compliance with being
Short-term
able to
rental.
short-term rental if we say you need X number of parking spaces per bedroom.
but
So-
but again, that would be the rental units or the condo association saying, yeah, you could do this or you can't, not us.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Just one more observation in that this council has recently, been really concerned about other issues where without appropriate regulation, there is concern that something could get out of hand where then the concern is that then you would not be able to regulate something without, because you've sort of already gone beyond the cap that you want to put on. And so I think to take it away entirely, rather than leaving that framework, and really getting a clearer picture of how close we even are to that cap, because I don't think we really know.
Yeah, and I think, so going back to sort of those items I listed, if we want it to stay within our cap or know how close we are to it, we want to have the data, we want to make sure there's compliance with our codes, and we want to be able to track who's registering and who's not. If those are what we're looking to do, I think if those are the items we're looking to sort of achieve, I think I echo what Dan is saying, that, I think exploring the software might be a good answer. Any other thoughts on that?
Well, I think if you do that, you're going to have people not registering on sites where you have the insurance, and it'll all be underground. Not all of it, but
Well,
a
that's
lot of it.
the point of the software is that it looks on the internet to find, so if you have a listing that someone can theoretically use for a vacation, we'll be able to match that with if they're registered or not.
That's right.
Yeah.
But then you have a list of clients, and you're no longer registered on any of the websites. And you,
Yeah, I think this is a good example of don't let perfect be the enemy of good, or whatever that phrase is. Yeah. So, sounds like looking at the data a bit more, or the software.
I think the thing that staff was kind of looking for is simply, if this is a way that the majority of council wants to proceed, we have the ability to do that. We just want to make sure, because of the discussions that were happening when it was adopted, the ordinance was adopted, that we're not doing something because a couple of councilors have reached out, which I think is awesome for a couple of councilors to reach out and get information. But if we want to make a change, we really need to make sure it's something that the whole council supports. If it does, I don't think I need more action from council, just clear directive that this is the avenue you want to go, and we make that happen and hopefully implement it.
In terms of the software, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Would you like to try Dan again?
We're going to try it one more time, Dan. No.
I think, just to echo what Dan was saying, I think given what we're already charging, which is a pretty nominal fee that would more than cover, I think, both staff time and the software, if it means moving to online registration, where we've taken the initiative to move a lot of things online, I don't think it's a significant expense. It's going to be covered by the fee.
Yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer.
So I don't think just saying, well, we're going to do it to get the data, but we're not going to use it to do the registration. As long as the staff feels comfortable that the registration platform is adequate to get the information that conforms with the ordinance, then I would think that it would make sense to just move in that direction.
I think it'd be fun to see it. I'm curious. But don't have that slow you down at all. Any other thoughts?
I was reluctant to embrace this notion of data collection through software because it just seems like it's going to dig us deeper, but I am absolutely convinced that it's a good idea, so.
And if it's proven to work in other communities too, I think it's don't reinvent the wheel if we don't
And it can be
have to.
reviewed.
Yeah,
And we can stop using it, but in the meantime.
yeah, good. All right, you good on that one? All right, so we'll move on to other business. Item 2, which is the discussion of creating associate members for town boards and committees. Counselor Pillsbury, I have you on this one.
Sure. I mean, I think the memo that Sophie put together is a great summary and lays out the current boards and committees and the number of members and the sort of mission and charge of the committees. The real impetus for this was, on the appointments committee, we were fielding a lot of interest, and we got to the point where we had more interest than open vacancies, and we want to capture the spirit of the community and the folks that want to give their time to the town, and this is a unique problem for us, so we wanted to figure out a way to engage as many folks as possible, and this was an idea that the appointments committee came up with, and I think that at the core of it, it's really, is there a pathway for someone to start on a committee in an associate member role, whether that's voting or not voting, and then be the first in line to fill vacancies and keep sort of a bench in play. And I think Sophie's laid out 2 really good options here. Option A, fixed non-voting. Associates attend and participate but never vote unless formally appointed to a regular seat. Option B, fluid voting. Associates are non-voting except when elevated during a meeting to replace an absent or recused member. So I think it's just open for our discussion. I think the last time we talked about this, it seems like a decent idea. I think we just need to nail down how we want to implement it and go from there.
I'm leaning towards option B. I think if, we're asking folks to participate and sit in meeting spaces, that, they're there to vote or participate if required. I know also Sophie went through maybe a pilot program. I'm kind of inclined to say, if we're going to do it, let's do it. Let's go with all of them. Because it was FSAB that really had the robust interest, and I want to make sure we capture that.
I'm also in favor of not doing the pilot. If we're going to do it, we just do it. But I would actually lean toward option A, only because then it seems my initial read on it is that, our boards and committees, the membership is pretty large. And if we've got folks moving in and out of voting, I think it may create some confusion. If they can meet, if they're, as an associate member, if they can meet quorum, I think that's the biggest thing to overcome. And just like any vote, people could recuse themselves. So it's not as though every member has to vote that's making up the quorum, correct?
I think,
It's interesting.
Maybe, I think that becomes tricky. And when I look at, for example, the place that I think we absolutely should do this as a regular voting, as a voting member or fluid, would be local Board of Assessment Review and Board of Appeals. because those are smaller boards that we can have conflicts come up quite a bit. And in those situations, I know with local Board of Assessment Review, it's a three-member board. It's a small, five-member board. It's a small board. So I think we'd want to look. When I was saying, I think we would want to be very clear. They're either voting members or they're not. So it can either be fluid or stagnant. And I think you have to be very clear which it is. I've seen it done both ways. My concern with seating them to be part of a quorum, I think you need the vote in order for it to truly be a member of the quorum. But I will tell you, Matt, I have not researched that specific question, so I'd be happy to do that.
And I think about too, if it is, like the planning board or PRB, and we know there's going to be an absence or potentially not a quorum, the question would be, do you take an associate member and try and onboard them quickly? That would be.
Yeah, you'd have to you can't vote unless you've been to 3 of these meetings.
Or like you have an orientation of your responsibilities and.
In the community I was in before, on planning board, which also was the project review board, they had, and local board of assessment review and appeals board, they had associate members. In the ordinance that created the associate member, it made it very clear that they had to have attended the MMA training for that board or an equivalent. And so when we were in a tough spot, we would bring the town attorney in to essentially run the whole board through the training.
And would you do that, would that sort of be like we need you to come in and sit in an empty spot, or would that be before they were appointed as a regular member?
So we did it that they would be appointed so that we could then send them off to do training, but they could not be seated. So there's a difference. You can be appointed and sit in the audience and watch, but until they had the training, they were not allowed to participate in the meetings, because people can ask questions on those boards that can cause problems if they don't know what their role is.
And then once they received that training, were they then fluid voting, where they would kind of?
Yeah, they did. We did a fluid voting. So if somebody was an associate member and all of the regular members were there, they would participate in discussion, but they didn't vote. If members were not there, the chair would elevate by seniority an associate member into the seat. With some of those, the things that come before those boards go over many meetings. Once you were brought into an item, you were there for the entirety of that item.
So I think that's my concern with some of these boards, where literally projects go on for years. And so if you, or at least many months, multiple phases of a project, site walks, so I'm thinking about project review board in particular, that if, you've had the regular members going through this project for months, and then one person's absent, and then you're elevating another person, and that happens to be like when they're finally voting on the thing. That seems, that's my concern for particularly the more sort of judicatory pieces here, but I would hesitate to try to parse this list out and say, well, these people can vote, if they get called on, but these people can't. So that's where I'm a little stuck. I really like getting people engaged and having that time of onboarding before you're in the seat and faced with making those decisions, and having that clear bench of when we have a vacancy, we have an obvious person who wants to participate. I'm also wary that if you just invite people to come to meetings a lot, but they don't get to participate, then that is not very interesting.
Right.
Well, they still get to participate, right? And they still get to help with the work and help dictate the direction. They just can't vote. So I echo everything you're saying. I actually think that it's a lot to ask board chair or staff to police this in the right way consistently. And for some of the ones that are quasi-judicial, we could get into real trouble if we don't do it exactly the way that we've drafted it. So, I mean, one way we could start this is we could just start it as fixed non-voting, and we can allow it as an entry point, and then as circumstances come up, if committees or boards say, oh, well, this is truly problematic, we'd like to change it, like, we can review it as we go, but at least it gets us moving in the right direction. The other thing is, if we have to rely on the associate member to step in consistently, it means that some of the members are not doing their responsibility, and there should be a shift anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can what if this in a bunch of different ways, but I think at the heart of it, getting people engaged and giving them a chance to understand and participate, I think is the right next step.
So you're proposing that we start off by doing the fixed non-voting for all of our boards and committees?
It's probably the easiest and less risky for a new idea for us to try, so that's why I would suggest it.
Yeah. Councilor Lawrence?
So do non-committee members that come to these meetings, can they not participate?
Well, it depends on the rules of order, right?
Yeah.
It's sometimes yes, sometimes no.
And now we're just saying you're associate, so you can participate all the time.
With the intention of,
Them coming,
yeah,
I'm just trying to understand the dynamic, I guess, is
yeah,
if I can come to a meeting and I can participate, great.
yeah.
Well, now I'm an associate, I can participate. What's the difference?
I think part of it is getting the materials. I mean, of course, those are open to the public as well, but that's different when you're getting them in advance and, you're really being engaged. I guess, although this seems nitpicky, one of the questions I have is, where are these folks going to sit on a board that takes up this whole dais? So particularly, I'm thinking planning board project review. How do you really engage someone in that conversation if they don't have a microphone? If you've got the recording secretary over there, maybe somebody sits over here, and that's in the alternate juror box. But I think that would also be something. It's a very different thing when everybody's down around the table, which is how a lot of our boards and committees meet. It's a little different when it's up here because it needs to be recorded in that way. So I think there are some logistical things to be worked out, but I don't think that's a reason not to do it. I just think it's something to consider.
Well, is it that we pull out, like, project review board and planning board are excluded from it? I'll be honest, like, during the appointments process, we didn't have tons of applicants for those two boards. That wasn't the one where everybody wanted to participate.
Yeah.
And it is the more challenging. In a lot of ways, I can see even more need for it, because having the opportunity to really kind of get in that rhythm and have that information and really see if that's something you want to do. But given that those are very challenging, in terms of it is a big commitment, I also wouldn't want to burn out somebody before you actually get them in that role.
Tom has Dan.
Dan, can you mute your computer audio? Are you there?
All right.
You're on.
Okay, fantastic. I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying. I would prefer option A to option B for a lot of the reasons you already mentioned. I do think there's a distinction between a board like FSAB
where it's great to get additional voices of people who are eager to participate and encourage them to come and participate in the conversation, even if they don't get to vote, and have them seated at the table with the same materials and all that. I'm a little nervous about the quasi-judicial boards, like Project Review and others, because being a part of the conversation is different than being a member of the public, right? And if I'm a part of the conversation, but I don't get to vote, it just creates an odd dynamic. So I'm influencing the other people on the board, even though I'm not voting myself. If there's a way to try this out, or to just enact it for all the non-quasi-judicial committees, that's where I would start. And that just makes our legal issue so much simpler, and I think it kind of hits the need of the things we would want to hit. If somebody's interested in trying out PRB to see, hey, is this for me? Like, great, you can just come to the meeting or watch it on Zoom, and you'll get a pretty good sense of it without having to be an associate member and having to participate in the conversation. And if you're just in that trial, probing the water stage anyway, I'm not sure we really want you participating in the conversation at that point. So that's my view. Thank you, Tom.
So kind of the opposite of how we started the conversation. So instead of starting with the quasi-judicial, starting with the smaller boards and committees. It's like FSAB, Complete Streets, Conservation Commission, et cetera. For trying it out. Which I think if we're trying to do it in a low risk kind of way, that makes sense to me. Yeah. Sound good? Did I miss something?
No, I think, was it an option that we were going to do it with just the quasi-judicial?
I wasn't sure if we were talking about that in the beginning.
Sorry.
Maybe we weren't. I don't know. It's not that late, but it kind of feels like it.
It's dark enough.
Yeah.
So we all agree that we'll tiptoe our way towards the smaller boards and committees and start trialing out this process. Great.
Can I just ask a quick question? Is that something that you want to go through ordinance, or can staff simply make some suggestions that come through here? Like, do you want, I just want to be.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm comfortable with it going through staff. I
Yeah,
think this
I
is
think-
clear direction.
That's the way to go, and then we can codify it if it works.
Yeah.
And if not,
I think particular for going with non-voting, that I don't think we need ordinance.
Yeah,
Yep.
agreed.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to our final item of the evening, which is the discussion of non-resident use of the recycling/transfer station. We have Caroline introducing it.
It's hard when you have your computer here.
Can't hear you.
How's that?
Much better.
Good.
Okay, hold on. So with changes to the silver bullets, it's brought a lot of attention to trash and solid waste. So we've been learning a lot, working with Earl and the Public Works team, Sophie, and specifically the staff at the recycling facility. So I just want to give you a little update on all things trash that we've been working on, because we've actually been doing quite a bit. So with the changes to the silver bullet, we've been looking at just waste in general and the waste system. We've been monitoring daily the conditions of both silver bullets while we had them, and now the one at West Street. We were getting a lot of calls in the beginning that they were full. Everyone has a different interpretation of what full means. Definitely near the holiday, they were pretty high, but if you flattened your boxes, you could still fit them in. There was a day that it was full, like there was no flat boxes going in. So we're continuing to monitor that and make adjustments as needed. You might have noticed in any of our social media or publications that we're putting out with the closure of the Hunter Road Silver Bullet, our preference and where we are directing people is to bring the recycling materials to the transfer station. They can be compacted and it's the most efficient. If not, there is still West Street, but you'll see that we've kind of changed the way we're presenting that. If you've been home on these storms surfing the web, you might have been on the website and noticed we've been doing some rework of the recycling page to really change the mindset to reduce, reuse, and then recycle, which, as you know, that also is support by work FCAN and FSAB are doing. We're going to continue with our best management practices for solid waste. You'll see Pete posting more stuff here and there like he did over the holidays. You all got a party favor tonight, which if you've gotten your transfer station sticker, you already got one, but we put together, working with staff, our communications director, Earl and his team, and Chris, our environmental services coordinator, a new handout that we're giving everyone that comes in and gets a sticker. It talks about the closure of the bullet, some just best practices, a link to the Recyclopedia, which is EcoMaine, telling you everything you can recycle, and then obviously ours. Also on there, you will read the fine print unveiled is a new way of doing spring cleanup. It's no longer going to be spring cleanup for a designated time. We're going to switch to an annual cleanup. We feel that this will really work better for staff and our residents. They will all get mailed a ticket, every household. They can bring one load at any time during the year that works for them. We hope to have that rolling out late, or mailing that out late January, early February to all households. So we're excited. We think that will help with some of the issues and definitely the demand it puts on our staff. And then overall, we have been spending a little more time out at the transfer station to kind of observe the flow of traffic, how things are set up, and, you know, are there changes we could make either in the near future for low cost or bigger changes to make the facility work a little better and also make it easier for our staff because they're wearing quite a few hats with just a few of them, especially when it's busy. So as we started to look into the transfer station and who's using it and how, we noticed that we sell resident stickers and non-resident stickers, but when you read the ordinance, it's not really clear if non-residents can use it. I think it leaves room for question. So we've been digging into this a little bit, working with past staff, past managers, old files, and it appears that back in the 90s, the town had a landfill, which we closed, and there was this set up at that time under statute to have regional disposal facilities. And so it appears that at that time, Freeport permitted as a regional disposal facility and worked out some agreements with other towns. The paper trail is not great. We are digging into that. Currently, we have North Yarmouth, Pownell, and Durham non-residents purchasing stickers to use the facility that they cannot dump household trash. They can dump bulky waste. Recycling is a little bit unclear. I think there's some work we could do on the ordinance. So we are digging into that, and we will be back to you with some more information there. As we continue to look at how we're doing things and tracking things, we always find room for improvement. Earl and his staff, Josh, who manages the day-to-day, are real team players and on board with all the wacky ideas that we come up with and want to implement out there. So we've implemented a new ticketing system. We're numbering the tickets to keep track. We're linking it to the property owner. They're showing their proof of residency in an easy, laid-back, friendly way. And then they're entering the owner's or the resident's information in a form, and we're going to have a great database to start tracking the information a little bit better. So we have rough numbers for stickers. So it looks like for 2025, we sold a little over 2,000 stickers at the transfer station. About a little over 300, 19% was to non-residents, and the rest were to Freeport residents. So again, we talked about what non-residents can dispose of. Residents can dispose of anything or recycle for a charge. And then we also do allow commercial uses to dispose or recycle their cardboard there, but that is all that they can do. So those are the couple users we have. When we dug into that a little bit deeper, one of the things we found is that we are also charging, although we charge a non-resident $40 for annual sticker, a resident pays $6. We also have this bulky waste fee structure. I believe we updated ours last in 2019. We've been having Chris, our environmental services coordinator, do some comparisons. We're probably going to bring that back to you because it looks like we're quite low and we want to make sure we're being up to speed on our costs there. But it also appears that back in 2004, we installed a scale at the transfer station. And in 2004, we had a fee structure that we had a bulky waste price for residents and one that was about 50% higher per item for non-residents. And so that went away when we got the scale. We had Albert, our engineer, who was here back in the day, had looked into that, and he thought at the time there was some logistics learning the new technology, and that we were going to revisit the non-resident price. We have not done that. So we're now looking into that. So what do we want you to do tonight? We're really here just to kind of give you more information than you probably wanted on solid waste. There's a lot of things that we're uncovering and looking into in ways that we're putting new systems in place to have better data out there to understand the costs and expenses and the people that are using it. One thing that really has stood out to us is the cost to our residents versus the non-residents. When the question first came up that we have non-residents purchasing stickers, but our ordinance isn't clear, we decided to put a pause on the 2026 non-resident stickers. We needed to bring it to the council to clarify some stuff we felt before we kept selling these stickers. Now that we've done some digging, we know we need a little bit more time to dig in information. One of the knowns is that our residents are paying $6, but if you look at the median tax bill, we know that our median assessed value of $460 is spending close to $78 a year in taxes to supporting the landfill. So they would have that plus the $6. The non-residents are paying the $40. So we feel as staff that that's something we should look at and maybe need to get some equity there. One of the ideas that we think maybe the council could consider is that we resume sale of the non-resident stickers, make them valid through June 30, the end of this fiscal year, at the same $40. That would buy us 5 or 6 months to continue to research, to come back with a proposal of what that fee structure should be, and revisiting the history and/or any agreements of how we got to those 3 towns using our facility today.
Sophie.
I think as we were trying to figure out how we went from an ordinance that says this is prohibited to a fee, stickers, and all of this, when Caroline says we were digging into, we were digging into this at lunchtime today, and we have not had a chance to reach out and have robust conversations with Durham and Pownell and North Yarmouth. So I think one of the things that staff really would want to do is, number one, I can't violate an ordinance on my own. You can fire me for that, so I prefer not to do that. So I kind of want to get council on board. But the thought being that over these next 6 months, along with all the other things we're doing out there, to be able to come in with our regional partners, at a minimum, I really do think we're going to have to look at the fee structure. And the question of whether or not those 30 extra tickets are meaningfully impacting our day-to-day use, I'm not sure that that's a meaningful impact, but I think we should look at it, and I think we need to be able to collect the data.
You mean the 300 stickers?
The 300 stickers, I'm sorry. 300 stickers. And I would really want to be able to collect actual data on that and not just feels.
Yeah, and I do want to flag that we received an email from a neighboring community about the importance of having access and sort of the understanding of the factors of what we're discussing tonight. So, I mean, I feel like the ultimate goal, what I would like to see is that we get to a point where it's still a regional facility, but that the price is adjusted to be more equitable.
I will just say, I think this is one of many items that are coming back before you or the Finance Committee, where Freeport has been a regional player in the system, which is great. As our budget demands are curtailed by council, we're all looking for ways to be able to continue to provide these services without the big increases. And we are seeing that some of the ways we're interacting with the region has a lot of subsidy happening. And so if we could still provide the service, but find a way that works with both us and our regional partners, I think would be ideal.
Absolutely. Councilor Brown?
So in terms of the sticker to non-residents, you'd be doubling the price, but it puts it from 40 per year to 40 per half year.
We would be proposing that as an interim measure.
Yes, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
but it
Not
also
prorating it.
puts it up to par with town residents. So it seems like a brilliant idea.
I think the thought that we had when we arrived at that was, it looks like on an apples-to-apples basis, $80 a year might be where we want to land. But let's say it wasn't. Let's say as we dug into it, we said, you know, residents have these services, non-residents have these services. It's really not a apples to apples. So instead of having it be 80, we want to go to 60. Then for the rest of the year, we could just do it for 20 for the rest and then put everybody on the same schedule.
I really appreciate that you're not trying to give an answer right now, and you're looking back to find the right information. Councilor Smith?
Just to clarify, when we're talking about that $78 on the median tax bill, is that just transfer station costs, or is that municipal solid waste costs, including EcoMaine?
That's the transfer station
Okay.
recycling line, which Sophie's shaking her head, yes, that does include.
Okay.
everything.
It's everything, including EcoMaine?
EcoMaine is part of that budget.
Is that tipping fees too?
Right, because that's, one of the things that I think will be helpful as we're sorting this out is to know that piece.
Yep.
Because I think what was interesting in the letter that we got from the neighboring community is to point out that they are also members of EcoMaine. They are also paying those tipping fees. And that's why it's not municipal solid waste or even necessarily recycling that's coming. It's specifically bulky waste. That's what they don't have. And I know this is where we're going to dig into it more, but I think that's where I think there's the fee schedule, there's who's paying what for what, but I think then there's the policy, which goes back to the ordinance question. And I think if it becomes a regional facility that is exclusively for bulky waste, then I think we would want to make sure that the fee schedule for the bulky waste is actually covering our costs for that stream specifically. Because I think when we think about it as all one big basket of transportation and tipping fees and bulky waste, if we're saying your sticker only gets you the bulky waste, then we also want to make sure that that's not, the other services that we're all paying for aren't subsidizing the bulky waste stream.
Yep.
I have one question, not so much as, at the remaining silver bullet, do we have a sign that says, hey, if this is full, take it to the transfer station, and these are the hours?
I'm going to look at the gentleman in the back of the room.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Dan has a question?
Thank you, Tom.
With his concierge.
Yeah, I got you.
It's a dangerous precedent.
Okay, go ahead.
Just a comment on Caroline's proposal, which I appreciate having to her effort to be equitable and all that. My suggestion would be to keep the stickers for the full year and getting them for a half year. It's confusing, and whatever we decide over the next 6 months, it will take us some time to gather the information, to figure out what we want to do, and then come up with the decision, which will feel like a very sudden decision if we come up with that decision in May or June and say, now you have to pay this in July. It just seems very confusing for everybody, for us and for our partners. And it just feels a little bit awkward to me to be able to change the rules on them so suddenly. So I agree, we need time to think about what we're doing, how we want to do it, what we want to charge. We can change the fee schedule pretty easily, is my understanding. So if we decide in July that we're increasing the fees for non-residents, that seems like a reasonable thing to do. But the stickers in particular just seems like it's awkward, and I think it's unnecessary. So I appreciate the spirit of it. Thanks.
Are all stickers June to June,
They're actually
or are they yearly stickers? So
January to December.
well, would there be a way to do this where you come in and you pay your yearly fee, and you move to town on May? And
Yeah, no, we do not want to do that.
Okay.
We want,
Prorating.
and I don't know of towns that prorate like that for a sticker. Oh,
I was saying go from May to May.
No.
Or,
that creates, so let me back up. I should never tell my bosses, no. But I think what I would say is we've trained people that on a calendar year basis, here's the color of the sticker, here's the,
So they're looking at it quickly.
so they're looking at it very quickly. Here's what I'm going to say. Trash is big business. And I think taking this time, and if council's comfortable with leaving the stickers for a full year, that's great. And we'd take the time as part of the budget process. We're trying to get through several of the fee schedules just because we think that that is a way to kind of offset by use and things that people can control for costs. So anyway, the answer is yes, EcoMaine is part of that budget.
Okay. So I think I don't have a problem with the suggestion of keeping it at $40 for the year, but I hear Caroline saying that this was something that they were going to revisit many years ago and then got lost in the shuffle. So I just want to make sure that we don't prolong the data and solution finding because we're extending the sticker.
The goal is to have a lot of the data at least crunched through the end of March so that we can, when we come to council, we'll at least have the first quarter that we'll be able to report as part of the budget process. And then again in June, I think is the thought. But to be clear, we're looking at capital changes out there. We've heard people have concerns about the hours of operation. So to try to figure out, are there things that we can do and still remain staffed? So this is a holistic piece that, quite honestly, we've got a whole team on, and Albert is leaving shortly, so we're going to try to use as much of his knowledge as we can before he goes on his sabbatical.
Yeah. So yes, I want to make sure the timeline stays the same if we keep the sticker
We've
for a full
invested
year.
in this project already. We've been doing a lot of digging into this project.
I was just going to say, so we haven't raised fees for non-residents in how long, the sticker fee?
I don't know about the sticker fee. I don't know if Earl knows that. When I was looking at the other, like the bulky waste fee in general, same for residents and non-residents, we hadn't updated that since 2019. I feel like maybe for one item we heard, but I didn't see the stickers on there, so I'm not sure the last time those were updated.
Because I think Dan makes a good point. But the counter to that is that it then prolongs the amount of time that Freeport residents subsidize this. So if we know that that rate is going to go up, would we want to increase it, say, like 50 or $60, and just have it in place for the full year. Knowing that, I mean, I can't imagine a scenario where the sticker fee goes down. And we likely believe that $40 is not a fair rate for the costs that we're incurring. So I would just throw that out as another option of how we look at it.
Right, like keeping it a full year, but increasing the price a little bit.
You could see us before that full year come back to you for a proposal of the bulky waste fee schedule, which may include just a flat increase or a resident and non-resident. So there's multiple moving pieces and ways to look at it. We just need more time to dig into it. It's a big ball yarn.
Councilor Brown?
So the bulky waste calculation could be changed, could be done quickly and changed soon. Yes?
We would want to be methodical. We've already been collecting the
Right.
data. We have a couple different towns. We've looked at Brunswick. Riverside is another place a couple of the other towns have people go. So we're looking at that data. Now that Jessica's back, we'll want to pull her in for some of our disposal costs and do some calculations. So it can be done quickly, but not
Even if
tomorrow.
it's 3 months, I mean.
Yeah,
you need-
quicker than the year, for sure.
You need adequate time, obviously,
We're already getting that data together for you.
I think, as someone who usually buys my transfer station sticker right before spring cleanup, I know people are buying stickers throughout the year, so I think the other, yet a third option would be, yes, take a little bit of time, maybe not wait until the end of the fiscal year, but sometime in the spring, have that data, update that rate. If, I don't know, a third of the 300 folks have already bought their $40 sticker for the year at that current rate, fine. If, but if we update the fee halfway through the year, that is the new fee for the
So
rest of the year.
We haven't sold any yet for non-resident. In the
Right,
2 days
paused.
that they were doing sales, they had about 150, 160
Wow.
stickers sold. So they've been
That's like
busy.
half, that's more than half
For all
of what-
for all residents.
All residents.
For
yeah.
residents, yeah.
Yep, and they'll do about 1,700.
And just because I want to acknowledge, in terms of how much you all have been doing in considering this issue, I think the idea of keeping the bulky waste coupon open throughout the whole year is enormously helpful. I hope that it's helpful for the staff at the transfer station in terms of not having everything consolidated on one weekend. I know it will be helpful for residents because I think having it all focused in the middle of the year, I think was particularly challenging. And I say that as someone with the one truck between multiple households too.
So we are also going to be collecting data on that this year. We haven't been collecting it maybe as much as we could have in the past. So we're going to most likely be tracking sticker number and number of coupons redeemed so we can kind of sift through that data, see how many loads, see how many people are helping their neighbors with the only person with a truck, and kind of go forward from there. So that's another piece of it too. Again, further out, we won't come back to you until we have that year of data, but another tracking system we've put in place out there.
So in terms of, what staff needs tonight is you need to understand sort of the length we want to keep the neighboring community stickers for right now, 6 months or a year, and then a potential price.
Yeah, yep, I think, 6 months to a year potential price, or just go forward. If you want to go forward, we're good to start selling non-resident stickers tomorrow. We're going to keep doing all the other work that we're doing, and we'll be back to you at some point. There's a lot going on out here, so it'll probably be bits and pieces over time, depending what the topic is.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Kate Day. I'm on the select board for Pownell. Do I need to ask permission to speak?
You may speak, Thank you.
Our solid waste, I am liaison for the solid waste committee in our town, and I think you got an email from the chairperson of that committee And I'm just here to express that the partnership is very meaningful to us. We've already had people come in and say, we couldn't get a sticker, what's going on? And that's sort of, to me personally, as part of the select, as a resident, the ability to use the transfer station for bulky waste is a significant thing. I've used it a lot in the past. The sticker price has been $40 for as long as I can remember, so I understand if that's potentially changing. As a member of the select board, I would just say that it was a little bit tricky for us, for the town clerk and for select board members and solid waste committee to not have any, to pretty much be blindsided by this change and to have residents come in and say what's going on and for us to have no idea what was going on. So, but I want to say that the partnership is really meaningful to us and we want to be involved in the conversation.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you for being here. Yeah, thank you very much.
Sorry about the blindside.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I get it.
I propose full year for $50.
I second that motion.
We're not voting, but thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah.
With the idea that we're still going to revisit the whole fee
Yes.
schedule sometime soon.
Yeah. Yep. So kind of a middle ground here where, give that predictability for a year. I think that's important. And then start that incremental adjustment. Yeah.
And start selling when?
Immediately, now. I mean, tomorrow. Sorry, Chris.
So would they have to take formal action on the fee?
So in my humble opinion, there's some grace here. We can just add it to the agenda on the 20th to that meeting as an item to formally change it. But just like I could say I have no idea what's going on, and now I at least know they want me
Yeah.
to sell it, so I think I'm in good shape.
Thumbs
Okay.
up.
Well, I think since we have to kind of vote on it, we should be keeping it now, sell it for whatever we've got, and then increase it when we've.
So at this point, people have gone 6 days without a sticker. 6 for bulky waste. To change the price at the end of January means some people will have bought it for $40 and other people would buy it for $50. And if you want 50, I would feel more comfortable doing it on my good grace, knowing that you're not going to take action against me, and then following up with a formal vote after the fact. Because you can do it effective January 7th.
Right.
We can back, yeah.
Yep.
And so we've only been selling stickers for 2 days, even for our own residents, just to clarify, because of the schedule and when we launched it. So we could start selling stickers tomorrow at $50 to non-residents.
Can I just get like a show of thumbs of how we're,
Does Dan
Dan?
have thumbs?
He's not, maybe.
is he frozen?
Yeah.
Oh, there it is, okay.
There's just them.
It's a very formal process we just did there.
I agree with just making the vote retroactive. I think that makes sense. And otherwise, it's not going to take long for everyone to decide they need to buy their sticker now.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
And yeah, you said this a few minutes ago, but this is still in the context of the conversation of revisiting the data and seeing what it needs to be. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. With that, we're at the end of our agenda. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion, or I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, we will do just, do I have to do a roll call for this? We'll roll call.
Just declare it.
Counselor Lawrence? Brown?
Yes.
Smith?
Aye.
Dan? Yep.
Thumbs.
Yep, and Benoit, yes, we are adjourned.